Thank you, Deputy Speaker. And primary production in agriculture and fisheries has always been at the bedrock of Australian cultural and economic life, and that continues to be the case today. It's certainly been the case in my electorate of Fremantle, especially in terms of fisheries, but also in the form of small-scale fruit and vegetable production, which in some ways is a legacy of the time when market gardens were a distinctive feature of life in Freo and Coburn. And while Fremantle has for a long time been home to a range of high-quality fishing operations, including Australia's first MSC certified octopus fishery, it's now looking at new kinds of production in the form of activities like seaweed aquaculture. So, Deputy Speaker, I'm certainly interested in hearing from the Minister about how we're helping this kind of innovation through the $8 million of funding in the Australian seaweed program. It was only last week that I had the privilege of going out with Fremantle Seaweed to harvest some caulerpa and asparagopsis for transplanting to their 32-hectare aquaculture set up off CY O'Connor Beach. The caulerpa is also known as sea grapes. I thought it was pretty good. Of course, the asparagopsis is significant because of its enormous potential as a feed supplement for livestock, with the CSIRO reporting that asparagopsis can reduce methane emissions in ruminant livestock by more than 90%. Deputy Speaker, the Albanese government is absolutely backing in these kinds of forward-looking innovation in agriculture and aquaculture because that's the nature of primary production. It's always looking to how things can be done better, more efficiently, more sustainably, with higher yields and less environmental impact, or even with environmental benefits. Indeed, that concept is what drives the nature repair market, a reform that did start with the National Party in the previous government. It allows those who want to invest in environmental repair to be matched with suitable projects, almost always involving farmers and or First Nations Australians, in order to deliver meaningful and measurable restoration biodiversity improvements. Deputy Speaker, Australia is and always has been a trading nation, and I'd ask the Minister to provide some information about how agricultural exports are growing under the Albanese government. We know that Australian agriculture is the basis of the delicious and healthy produce that we all enjoy, but it's also about delivering for an export market, and that's definitely the case with WA's remarkable wheat belt, which has achieved record crops in recent years, the vast majority of which is for export. So in order to achieve the potential of Australia's primary production, we have to look to create new and larger markets overseas. And I can say, as the chair of the Treaties Committee, I've been fortunate, my colleague, Member for Spence, to be part of that process. I know the new government has delivered trade and investment agreements with both the UK and India. And as I understand it, that's already seen impressive new market access for Australian farmers and producers. In fact, in the first 12 months since the Australia-India Economic Cooperation Trade Agreement entered into force, agricultural exports were up 60%, the big winners being salmon, almonds, beans and avocados. And I'm particularly glad to note that as we implement our commitment to sensibly manage the final part of a decades-old transition out of the irremediably harmful live sheep export trade, that processed lamb exports to India increased 160% last year, while processed lamb and mutton exports to the UK are up 17% and 75% respectively in 2023. Deputy Speaker, the task of protecting Australia's biosecurity is vital to keep our world-leading produce free from pests and diseases that are rife elsewhere, and so as to maintain bountiful production, keep animals free from harm, protect the broader community from the risk of zoonotic disease, and hold up our reputation across the board in terms of the health and sustainability of Australian food and fibre. And the biosecurity challenge has particular meaning in Western Australia, as I know my colleagues will understand, which in some ways, as COVID-19 showed, is an island within an island. And from the outset, the Albanese government has been prepared to take new measures to protect Australian biosecurity, put it on a more sustainable footing. For the first time in our history, we've got a sustainable biosecurity funding model with a record $1 billion investment. And in addition to that record funding, the new model does mean more transparency for farmers and importers, giving them more of a say on biosecurity priorities. In the most recent budget, we've allocated $16.9 million to ensure the biosecurity integrity of Australia's border remains contemporary and adaptable, and that includes specialist technology and equipment at Western Sydney's new airports and detector dogs to keep Australia free from exotic pests and diseases. Deputy Speaker, I'm keen to hear from the Minister in all these areas, supporting innovation, improving biosecurity, responding to environmental and climate risks and expanding export market opportunities. I don't think there's any question that the Albanese government, through the excellent work of Minister Watt, is working hand in hand with Australian primary producers to build a stronger and more sustainable future.